Hey, welcome back to Keep It Simple podcast. I'm Gavin Durson, and usually with Tom LeCompte, but today I'm bringing you part two of my conversation with Bart Scarborough and a little series I'm calling Simple Church Conversations. So hope you enjoy that. Before I get into telling you a little more about that, I want to remind everybody we will be having a Simple Church retreat on September 10th and 11th in Stanford, Kentucky. All the details about that are up on simplechurchalliance.com's website. And also, I was refreshing the directory there. That's been helpful to some folks over the years, and it's also been something some people have wanted to be a part of, and others, it's not a big deal to them, and that's fine. But if you would like to be listed on there, or your house church, or even just as someone in a certain area that's looking to perhaps start a simple church type community or be a part of that process, I'd love to list you on there. Just reach out to me and we can talk about it and we can go from there. But want to just mention that briefly. Today I'm bringing you part two of my conversation with Bart Scarborough, and yet last podcast, you can go back and listen to that sometime. I highly recommend that. It was definitely one of my top 10. We really were hitting on a lot of topics and things that are near to my heart and where I'm at these days as it relates to organic church, house church, simple church. I think there's a lot of that as it becomes more popular. I do see sometimes maybe a vein of that still has some trappings of an old way of thinking, a sort of a doing ministry for God kind of approach. And Bart and I really get into maybe a different approach of thinking about the Christian life and about church and about walking with the Lord. And I really love kind of where the conversation went. So much so that when we ended the podcast last time, Bart and I ended up talking, and I was like, hey, I got to hit record on this because, man, this is still really good stuff, and I'm really being encouraged by what we're sharing. So I kind of joined in. You're kind of jumping into this a little bit midstream. I think we recapped some of the things that we didn't get recorded as we went along, but I wanted to share this with you. It's a little shorter, but I think definitely worth listening to. So hopefully you're encouraged as much as I was by the things that the Lord seemed to be bringing up when Bart and I were sharing this wonderful conversation together. And without any further ado, I'll just let you get right into it. Part two with Bart Scarborough. I'm sorry, I'm going to just record all this. We'll end up talking about this more. I might want to use it.
Okay.
So the question you ask is what?
The question I ask often at our table is, what is the truest thing about you? What's the truest thing about you? And usually someone will say, well, I'm wretched, or they'll say, oh, well, I'm a dad or whatever, but what you and I are talking about is the truest thing about us is that we, like, deep down know that we are his beloved son. We are the beloved. That is who we are. And then everything flows out of that. That's a game changer. That's different than kind of going, oh yeah, God loves me, or I'm a sinner saved by grace, and that I'm just barely, hanging on. Those things are true. Those things are true maybe, but it's not the truest thing. The truest thing is this whole new identity as the beloved son.
Mm-hmm.
And living out of that, I think for me has been life-changing.
Yeah. And I think, and that's what I'm trying to, I think that's what I'm learning, I'm learning. And I just, it's so, but it is frustrating because, like I was saying, like, I think sometimes, like I could be sitting across the table from someone who's doing ministry, and it's like, well, man, I think we're slowing down and we're focusing on, like, most important before we start any house church or do this. I was like, we really need to make sure we're rooted in his love and that's our identity. And they're like, well, yeah, of course, like that's why we're doing it, and it's just kind of like, man, and I don't want it to be like, I don't want to be judgmental or be like, oh, well, like, you don't know God's love. You're not talking about like me, like you obviously are like shallow minded, but and I think for some people it's just easy, like, and maybe that's just the way God works in different people. For some people, that's all it'll ever be. It's like matter of fact. Yeah, matter of fact, he does love me.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do to change that. There's nothing I can do to improve upon that. Now let's go get him. And maybe that's the way God has it, but then it does seem like, for me at least, it's like, man, like, I need to experience that. That can't just be a head knowledge
Right.
thing. There's a reality that I need to connect with before I can go on and start doing, like I can
Yeah.
re-engage, like let's do, and that's a lot of what I'm learning, from my daughter and from the other things from conversations with you and others.
Yeah. I think that's where maybe the spiritual disciplines come in, right? That they give us a chance to actually experience some of those things. I mean, it sounds like spiritual discipline. That sounds like, oh man, that sounds, but it's a chance for us to experience the Lord. I mean, like when we can spend time in solitude, which is hard, when we can spend time in silence, and we can, prayer and, the scripture and meditation on the scripture and these kind of things, those are chances for us to begin to experience more and more of his love, I think. Have we talked about John Mark Comer? Are you familiar with him?
I feel like I know the name, but I don't think we've talked about it.
He wrote the book that you probably have heard of, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Oh yeah.
You familiar with that book?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like captain of the only read the Old Dead Saints guy. I mean, that's what I'm usually telling people to do. Only read the Old Dead Saints guy. Well, this guy's like this young guy on the West Coast, Portland. But I mean, I really like what he's saying. And he's pretty much taken Dallas Willard and putting it into terms that people that aren't as smart as Dallas Willard, which is all of us, can understand, but certainly terms people like you and me can understand. But it's really written for probably like a under 40 crowd. But it's like the name of the book, the story, you probably know this, but John Ortberg was kind of starting this church in California, and he was just getting taken out, right? I mean, he was getting beat up, and his mentor was Dallas Willard. So he called Dallas and said, hey, listen, this isn't working out. This isn't life to the full. I need some help, and I need it fast. And Dallas said, after a little pause, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And Ortberg said he wrote that down real quick and then said, okay, great. What else? And then there was a longer pause. And Willard said, there is nothing else. Hurry is the great enemy to the spiritual life.
Man.
And so that was this kind of famous quote that now John Mark Comer took the quote and he wrote that book, but he started this ministry. His church had sent him off to help maybe the church, capital C, figure out how do we do that. And so he started this ministry called Practicing the Way. And practicingtheway.com, I think is what it is. But he talks about having these different buckets, like one is being with Jesus. And that's a part of, one is becoming Jesus. I can't remember the buckets, but I know one of them, the first one is being with Jesus. We've got to be with him so that we can grasp these things that we're talking about, so that we can move out into these other areas. But the whole idea, he talks about being an apprentice of Jesus.
Yeah.
Apprenticing under Jesus. And so he gives you these great resources. I'd highly recommend him.
I think, one thought on that too. I mean, he may say it's not to correct that or anything, but like, as you're saying that, I think, because sometimes like being with Jesus, and even you said this, and I know you don't mean it in that way, but like we say, well, okay, somebody's wanting to start a ministry of some sort. Okay, well, the first thing you got to do, you got to be with Jesus. Okay, how do I do? Let me get my list out. All right, 20 minutes, and we start making it our thing, And I think sometimes like when you start to learn these sorts of things, it's kind of interesting, like hearing you talk about the disciplines, because I think it's true. It's like, but sometimes there could even be a pushback to that. Well, like I don't want to have to start. God's not wanting me to. He's not saying you have to be with me. And it's not a have to, it is you get to, it is like, man, I want to, like, how can I desire to come to him, to sit with him, to rest with him, to be with him, because that's going to be how else can I get to know his heart? How else can I develop that relationship with him? And so you almost have to, it's not you have to be with him. It's that, man, you kind of have to in one sense, right? But it's not a have to in sense, well, that's like, Okay, that's my next to do thing. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Sure. And I think some of that is how we learned. Let me put it this way. My wife Victoria and I, we just heard this new definition of prayer. Okay, this flips everything for us. Prayer is spending time with the one who adores you.
Mm.
Spending time with the one who adores you. How great is that? We grew up going, all right, prayer is a list of these things you have to do or say, or this thing that you have to do to follow Jesus or something. No. Oh, prayer is getting to you get to spend time with the one who adores you. That's what prayer is. And so in some ways it's like we really reorient ourselves with the whole Christian faith and what it means to be a follower and an apprentice of Jesus, because we've gotten these bad ideas of like, we got to do these things to be a good Christian or something. But I think, man, that's messed us up. That's messed us up. And when we begin to enter in to his great love and know, all right, the one who adores us, we get to spend time with him. And then Jesus was always going to spend time with the Father to get his marching orders. So we can't do ministry unless we're going to spend time with the one who adores us. So then he can direct us and lead us to where he wants us to go. And those kinds of thoughts, so, but that's what I think John Mark Comer in that Practice in the Way, he's helping unpack some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. He's flipping a lot of that on its head, and which is what Dallas Willard did 30 years ago. And John Mark's making it real accessible for us.
Yeah. It's funny because, and I've shared some of this with you as we've talked, but like, and I'm sure you wrestle, but it's like that message. I mean, like to lead with that, man, if that's going to be your mantra, that is it's so true. And I think it's so sorely needed. It is I'm thinking back like to when I was with the FCA, it's like, I mean, it's like, okay, that's important, but man, we got to get on, we got to raise money. We got to raise money for this mission. Like, how can I go? I'm going to go meet with this guy. I got to talk to him about, I can't just say, man, I really, I can't just be about like, my main thing can't be about leading him, to spending time with the one who adores you. Like, I got to make sure that he spends that time with the one who adores you. And he does so with me in the background and knowing my needs and how he can give to it, or, all these things, it's like it's just, I think it's so, I think with how we think about ministry and do things, like to really like go with that message, like it really challenges the faith of the person. It's like, man, like, am I about this or am I not? Because if I am, it does reorients how you think and how you do and what it means to live and breathe and be involved in what God's work is and what he's doing. It just changes everything. If you really want to go like, and like, not just say you believe it, but like really live based on that idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. It does. And we talked earlier, it's so countercultural, but it's not just countercultural like the world. It's like counter to the Christian culture, to the church culture.
Oh yeah.
There are lots of things like, it's just way different. But I go back to what we talked about earlier with that Henry Nouwen, In the Name of Jesus. It feels to me like this is the way of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want. I just want to be more and more a part of that, even though it might be different than the real popular thing that's going on.
And don't you think that's what the world, like, I just have to think that, I mean, take the person who's out there, the 20-something-year-old who's graduated from college, they got all this debt, they've done everything they're supposed to do, they're making 6 figures a year or whatever, but they're in, as soon as they graduate, they're in the machine, they're going, and they hear the message that, maybe the stereotypical message of the church, come get involved and get signed up and go to this and do it. And they hear the hurriedness of the Christian life that the church can present to them sometimes, or they hear a picture, they give the picture of following Jesus that you're talking about. Like, come to Ancient Way and take a break from all that and spend some time with, like, I have to believe that, like, when we think about a world that is just exponentially, it seems like go, 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 that maybe that's the reason the church is in decline. Maybe, we think we're out there, to use what we were talking about earlier, like we have this urgency for the gospel. Maybe the urgency is to slow down, the ruthless elimination of the hurry. And that's when people will see, oh, that's what it means to walk with Jesus. It does mean to walk with him, not to run. And maybe that is the thing that the world is hungering for,
John Mark Comer talked about this in a podcast or sermon or something I listened to last week. He was talking about how the Christian faith changed Rome. And it was by this word hospitality that, they started having like hospitals and hotels and, but really they started inviting people into their homes, and that's what changed the world. Matter of fact, one of the Caesars was so angry. He said, we're going to have to start doing this because all these Christians, everyone's going to these Christians because they're having people into their homes. We need to start doing this as pagans or whatever, But I just think right now, especially with the state of the world, boy, there's nothing more attractive, I think, than what if we just were really kind to our neighbor and had them into our home and loved on the people differently and had time to hear their stories and had time to engage with them and know their children and watch their children's performances at school. What if we did that? Man. I mean, I just think that would really. There's another author that we like a lot named Rosaria Butterfield.
Oh yeah.
You know her?
Oh yeah.
There's a powerful book she wrote, and the book's great. I'm not saying don't read it, but you don't need to read it because the title is enough. The gospel comes with a house key.
Mm-hmm.
How good is that? I mean, the gospel comes with a house key. And welcome people in, invite people in, have people in, and that'll change. I think that'll change the world. And right now, specifically, this cultural thing that's going on and the world being so opposed to Christianity, I think the way of Jesus and having people into your home, I think that's super attractive. Just like you said, I think that's super attractive.
Yeah, man. It's like but we have to slow down to do that. Even I'm sitting here thinking, about just my own life, and it's like, man, and there's seasons. I mean, there are going to be seasons where, man, it's like if you can have one person over for dinner, a year or a month, like maybe that's all the capacity you have. Maybe you have the capacity to do it every night of the week. We don't have to. There's not a legalistic rule about it. But I know that like that was a big part of it for me. Even when I started 10 years ago in the house church, I was just like, man, I'm so busy doing Christian stuff. Like I don't even have time to have anybody into my home, And I think if we're not careful, for those that might, the house church can be that way too. There's some built-in things that help, but that mindset of go hustle can still be there. And I think that's there in a lot of what I'm seeing in some of this house church stuff that's coming out. It's like, oh, we've got a bigger, faster, more fit, we said last time, system. But man, I think that is so good, man. That is so good. And I just, appreciate all those extra additional thoughts we've had here after we got done.
Yeah, this is gonna be week 2.
Be part 2. No.
Let me show you this too while I got you. This is I made this. This was a good year last year. Georgia Dogs and Atlanta Braves won it all. He just put together a little bumper sticker for me. How about that?
I think that may be a copyright infringement. We may need to get the federal government looking into that.
I'm hoping not a lot of people are watching this podcast.
Man, they had a UK night down at the Atlanta Braves game the other night. You could get a blue Atlanta Braves hat with a UK logo on it.
Really?
They did. I think
cool.
There's a big alumni association down there in Atlanta, man. A big UK alumni association. They do some pretty cool stuff down there, man. You might ought to think about getting involved with it. And
I'm gonna go check it out.
Go check it out. Maybe convert you.
Listen, if I'm doing anything with the Big Blue Nation, I'm coming to Lexington. That's the coolest city in the South, or it's not even the South. What are y'all? The Midwest? I don't even know. It's not.
Man,
It's not the South.
We're a border state. We're
okay.
we're south of the Mason-Dixon. I think that's much for sure. But it depends on the way the wind's blowing. We might want to be Northerners, or we might want to be Southerners. we got that option.
We love Lexington, man. It's a great city.
All right. Well, man, I think I'm going to officially say goodbye here. And this time it's going to be for real. I'm just going to say stop, and I'm going to end this recording. But man, thanks for your time. And we'll be in touch. We'll get together. We'll do this again. And hopefully we'll get to see each other in person. Certainly when the dogs come to town, if not sooner.
Looking forward to it. You got to get me tickets now. You got to get me tickets to the game.
Yeah. Those will be coming in the mail. I've actually got them for you already. They're coming. Just wait on them. They'll be there. They'll be there. We need to make sure we definitely want to get the Scarborough family in there in their Georgia red and all that. So I'll definitely, it's a high priority to make sure that happens. So you just wait there for those tickets, and they'll be coming.
I enjoyed it.
Awesome, man. Likewise, we'll be in touch. I'll see you.
Okay.
All right,
see
bye.
you.